Hello everyone, I'm Janelle Nichols and welcome to Memory Matters for All Ages. The second week of the month, we customarily talk about early onset dementia, but today we're going to put a little different spin on it and talk about a topic related to that many of you may not have thought about. I know I didn't. I want to welcome back to the program Catherine Kilpatrick. She is a speech-language pathologist with over 40 years of experience in her field, a national speaker, author of over 30 publications. She works with groups on many topics related to cognitive issues and memory. And today we're going to talk about medical information. And this is something that I had not thought about until you told me we were going to talk about it. It's so important.
It really is.
And I got to thinking about that you would rely on someone knowing about their medical information, what prescriptions you take, what over-the-counter you take, what your situation is.
Right.
Do you have high blood pressure? But if someone has the symptoms of early onset dementia, they might not be able to tell you what their medical history is, or even what this pill is, or how many times I take it.
Yeah.
So this is a incredibly important topic to talk about.
Right, and part of it is the fact that they may know, but they may be having more difficulty if they had to be the reporter for someone close to them.
Right.
A spouse or one of their children, because with young onset, early onset, those people are, under age 65, generally speaking. I mean,
so not just about themselves, but about a spouse or a family member that lives with them, or,
Absolutely.
So, okay.
And, the medical world has become so complex, and there's so many details. And then doing home health, I'm seeing people in their 80s and 90s. Well, I have a gentleman right now whose wife is almost 90, and she has dementia. So she can't supply any information.
Sure.
Fortunately, cognitively, he's able to do that. So it's really, helpful that we gather this no matter what age. So we have that information available to us.
There's another aspect of that too, and this is a personal observation. With my parents, they were very private about their information, and they looked at me, even as an adult, they looked at me still as their child. So I did not know, and when there was a health information or a health situation, I could not answer the questions for my dad because Mom had not shared those details with me, and Dad had not shared those details with me.
This is something we just really don't think of.
Right.
So.
Yeah. All right. So tell us some things to think about.
How is your information recorded? Or is it just all up here? And do other people have that information? And who has copies of it? So one of the things in the medical information blogs I've written, it'll give you some detailed things to do, but we really kind of need to step back because something could happen like this woman who called EMS, and she was in early 40s, and her family really wasn't aware of whatever medications she had. So when we do end up filling it out, we want to make sure that we make copies of it because it can get lost in all those piles, and maybe it needs to be given to the family members that are out of town. And then there's the fact that many older adults may need help organizing this information. In one of my home health patients years ago had a lot of back problems, and I was seeing her for swallowing difficulties, and actually her swallowing difficulties were related to some of her posture issues, and she had a little piece of paper that must have been folded 500 times, written in pencil, of all of her surgeries and medical things that were going on, and I went, wow, this is really great, but it's impossible to photocopy at this point. So I said, who in your family, you've got some grandchildren who probably can, get on their little computer or laptop or whatever and type this up and then update it as things went along. Well, she hadn't thought of that, and, again, trying to make people more aware. I think we need to have more programs, related to that. So, and then often there's things from the past. So I don't even know if you know my story about how sick I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and I was unable to work, and I was diagnosed with sensitivities to chemicals in the environment. Long story, long rehab program, had to get everything out of my environment. You know, things that had smells and all of that were bothersome to me. So, you know, I manage now. Most people don't realize it, but I make sure that I watch what I'm around. And if I was in a nursing home and couldn't talk, and somebody was cleaning with Lysol, most people would think that would be a really good thing. But if I'm, you know, smelling those fumes, my knee-jerk reaction would be to get out of there. If I can't talk, then you might see some difficult behaviors. So we really need to know some of the background history that's long since been forgotten. And I, you know, when I see a patient, they'll say, "Oh yeah, well they had a stroke, you know, maybe 20 years ago and had swallowing problems." Well, that's real pertinent to what's going on, but people don't often remember to talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, we've heard about the Vial of Life, but there are a number of communities that have put together a program of their own, and Hudson has put together a wonderful program called the Fridge Med Pack.
Correct.
And this allows you and members of your family to register with EMS pertinent information so that if there is an emergency, then the information is right there at the hands of the people that can help you.
Right.
And it's just a wonderful program. And I think the whole idea of putting it on the fridge or inside, you can explain how that works. But I think it's just a great program, great idea.
Good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's what the form looks like, and this is one of the things that I suggest you make copies of. And for those of you from Hudson, Ohio, you can go to the EMS service building on Oviatt Street, or you can download it at the website at emsoutreachhudson.org, and that information will be on the blog later on. So, and it has Velcro strips, and then you put it in your refrigerator, because in the likelihood of a fire, your refrigerator is probably, you know, and plus people know where to exactly look for it.
Right.
So
It's an excellent idea. Back to the personal example you gave about what you went through many years ago, and then you gave the example of what if you were in a nursing home and you did not have the ability to speak. That is something that no one would ever think of. They would wonder why. They'd look at your medicine, they'd call the doctor. No one would ever look at the cleaning, you know, unless that was documented. So this is just such an important subject, and I think it's just excellent. I'm so glad you brought this to our attention. Give us some tips that we can consider as we think about this this subject.
Again, the elder care blogs on my website have a lot more detail, but I just want to make you aware of this. First of all, if you have a hearing loss or a vision loss and you're going to the doctor's office, you need to alert them to the fact that that's an issue. Because if someone's not facing you when they're talking, and often now we're doing documentation and looking down, the complaints of many older adults is, I feel like I'm not, you know, being acknowledged, or I'm having difficulty hearing, and then they often just don't verify the information. That's why I often suggest, even with early onset, have someone go with you to be able to get those details. Or maybe you request that things be written down, or they be in larger print. So we need to have more of an awareness there so that we're getting the information that is actually passed along to it. This fridge med pack type thing. First of all, I suggest a couple of things with this. My concern with these is people don't update their medication list. And I have some patients who are on a variety of medications, and they can be updated very frequently. So if you're going to list the medication, you really need to make sure that you do that. And then this is something I learned many years ago when I was working on a similar project, and a gentleman went into the hospital, was very agitated the whole time, and he didn't have any family. Come to find out, he wasn't not able to communicate this. He was stressed because he had a dog at home, and he was going to have to go to a nursing home and not ever be able to return home, and he was worried about his pets So maybe indicate the pets. We see that sometimes, in homes with stickers, but I think we need to if we're going to have this vial of life thing.
And see, I would have never thought about that. That's just
Yeah, but you don't do
excellent.
home.
I know.
Yeah,
but the pet
yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
that's an excellent
Absolutely.
point.
And the other thing that I think is really important is to make a notation on the form. The person's very hard of hearing. The person has memory problems already. They have slurred speech from a stroke, because if you're the EMS person coming in and this person's speech is slurred, you may think they're having a stroke when in fact this is normal for their current situation.
So in other words, the more information, the better.
Right. You can just stick another piece of paper in there. If they're going to look, may as well give them, more is better.
More insight,
in that
sure,
case, yeah.
absolutely.
And then lastly, a lot of people they want to be able to ask their doctor questions, but they don't because they have some communication deficits. So my suggestion is, and even to the middle stages of Alzheimer's, people can read out loud. So work with your loved one or your friend or whomever and write down a few of the questions so they, with dignity, can read them to the doctor.
Excellent idea. So the more information, the better. Write it down. I know at our assisted livings, we prepare a packet on each person in case there isn't an emergency and 911 has to be called. Then we can hand that packet to 911 and everything's in there. Years ago, there was a gentleman at Kent Ridge that all of his family were out of town, and he was a longtime Kent resident, and he came to me with everything written down. It was hard to read, like the example you gave. I don't know how old of a piece of paper it was, asking me to type everything up for him, update everything. We made a number of copies. I gave him some, and then I kept copies in his file there at Kent Ridge. And I thought that was so smart of him.
We need to be more aware of that.
Absolutely.
And in communities like yours, they need to have that, and they already have some of that information, but is it in one place so that EMS can get it?
Right,
handily?
everything was typed. We had the name of every child. We had how to contact them, the best way to contact them, phone, email. We had all of the information that we needed. So I do want to take this opportunity to mention Kathy's website. She touched upon it a couple times here, but at the end of the program, please continue to watch and you'll see Kathy's website and her contact information there. Again, we've only got 15 minutes. We try to get as much information in as we can, but her website is just a wealth of information. I know that you've got your elder care series on there, which is so rich. She talks about how to set this up and get information. You give insight into making appointments, going to appointments, getting the information all in one place, recording everything. There's just a great deal of information there. So I would encourage everyone, take a few minutes and look at Kathy's website. Also, the blog, you can get to her blog through the website where she will blog about in detail the information that we talked about in our short 15 minutes today.
And links to other places on my website because there's so much information.
There's a great deal of
yeah,
information. So you need to take a few minutes and get on there and look at that. Kathy, what is a priority for us to do this week? I mean, you've given us such practical information. What's the first step? If somebody says, I got to do that, what's the first step, or what can they do this week to get them on the right path for this?
Just start doing it.
Just start.
And find someone that maybe you could help gather that information. I think sometimes in helping someone else, then you get more aware of what it is that you need to do. And then if your community does not have something, talk to them about it, see what's going on. Refer to what we have here in Hudson. Again, there's a link to that, and you can find that particular information.
Very, very good. This was such an important topic today.
Yes.
I'm so glad. This is one of the things I love most about you is you're so practical, and you give us things that just make so much sense. Again, we thank you for joining us. Make sure you go to the blog. Kathy, do you have a quote for us as usual today?
Organizing is what you do before you do something. So when you do it, it's not all mixed up. AA milk.
I'm going to have to think about that one for a minute. But that was wonderful. Thank you so much for this important
Thanks,
topic.
Janelle.
We hope to see all of you next week. Now go and make it a great day.